We bought our 5 acre lake here in the southeast United States about 3 years ago. Our goal was to turn this lake into a trophy bass lake, and we were only missing one thing: the trophy bass. Pictured here is a friend holding up an almost 5 pound bass. As you can see from the picture, this bass is long and lean. It would need a lot of work to make this fish grow any bigger. To complicate things in our lake, we also have a stunted crappie population. Here is the result of our first ever crappie expedition. Notice how all of the crappie are carbon copies of each other. Each one is 8 to 9.5 inches and skinny. Crappie are absolutely terrible in small lakes and ponds for a couple reasons. Number one, as the OG pond manager Bob Lusk says, they are a top end predator limited by their mouth size. Crappie come from big river systems and large lakes where they can sit in deep water, efficiently feeding on soft rayed prey species like threadfin shad, things that are shaped like a torpedo. Since the crappie's mouth is relatively small, it does not do well eating a diet of bluegill, which are disc shaped and grow too tall to even fit in their mouth. Secondly, crappie are boom or bust spawners. That means they may go several years with little or no spawning activity, but there could be one year where all the weather aligns perfectly and you get a huge spawn. During the boom years, the pond is inundated with millions of crappie fry. A lot of people think that if they put crappie in their pond or small lake, they will end up with huge slabs like this crappie my friend caught. This fish was truly special at about 16 inches long and 1.9 pounds. In reality, with a stunted crappie situation, you will end up with about 300 crappie this size, 400 this small, and about 5,000 this big. I mean, just take a look at this crappie. He is so skinny, he looks like he can swallow himself whole. Now, ponds and lakes have a tendency for the predator species to overeat the food chain, take over the body of water, and then stunt at a small size because there are too many mouths to feed and not enough food. Usually, this happens with bass, and a pond will be full to the brim with 12 to 14-inch skinny 1 pound bass. The way to turn things around is to harvest those skinny predators, which leaves more food for the remaining fish. Every single lake management professional will recommend you harvest predators from your private water. So we started harvesting some bass and then the crappie too, hoping to leave more food for the remaining bass to grow bigger. In total, we harvested 866 crappie, which was approximately 260 pounds. Interestingly, I would estimate that only a dozen crappie were over 1 pound. That's less than 1.4% of all the crappie we caught. So if you believe that you are going to grow a bunch of slabs in your pond, I'm telling you that is not what is going to happen. So we harvested a bunch of bass and crappie out of the lake and expected the bass fishing to get better. Drum roll, please. It did not get better, and it in fact got even worse. Two metrics you can use for managing bass in a pond are the relative weight and the catch per unit effort, or CPUE. Both are easy to understand. Relative weight is just comparing the weight of your fish to a set standard based on its length. For example, a 12.5-inch bass should weigh 1 pound, a 15.5-inch bass should weigh 2 pounds, and so on. The catch per unit effort is usually defined as how many bass did you catch per hour. So after harvesting over 500 crappie the first year, our bass actually had lower relative weights, which means they got skinnier in that second year. On top of that, our catch per unit effort was so low that it took one person over an hour and a half to catch one bass. We had skinny bass and low catch rates. Now, you might think that our bass got skinnier because we removed a lot of those stunted crappie, which was their food source. However, the bass were already skinny to begin with, and we wouldn't have even had stunted crappie in the first place if the bass were eating them. The facts are clear. Bass do not efficiently feed on crappie in ponds and small lakes. At this time, I was also following work being done in a new pond by retired fisheries biologist Shan O'Gorman. I'll put his channel in the description below. He was growing northern strain largemouth bass at 2 pounds per year just by stocking the pond correctly and managing it. At this point, I had a decision to make, and the data is staring me in the face. Do I want to continue spending 40 hours or more per year harvesting crappie, praying they don't get off another boom spawn, in the hopes of one day having a good bass lake? Or do I want to pull the plug and start over and definitely have a good bass lake in 5 years or less? After reaching out to a local company and seeing how easy it would actually be to start over on the lake, it was a simple call. The company came out and set up a siphon over the dam, which dropped the lake down. Once the water was low enough, they applied a fish poison called rotenone to eradicate the fish. All of the crappie, bass, and bluegill died. This allowed for a fresh start. Maybe you are watching this video and you are thinking of adding crappie into your pond or lake. I would strongly recommend you do not go this route if you care about your bass fishing. On the other hand, maybe my situation was similar to yours. If you have a stunted crappie situation and you think you can harvest enough crappie to bring things into something resembling balance, maybe with enough effort you could get there. However, from my experience, I know that all of my efforts to do that were not rewarded. I would recommend you do the admittedly dramatic thing and drain it down and start over. My bass are going to grow 2 pounds per year. Are yours?